it's few days to Christmas and prices of foodstuffs keep going high. Let's have a chat with Dr. Justin Amase, who is an economist, on this situation with the latest inflation figures in. Thank you so much for joining us on the news tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nigerians.
I mean, when you hear these inflation numbers, what does it really mean for Nigerians as we prepare, you know, to go shopping for the Yuletide, Christmas in particular, and then the New Year's right around the corner? What does that mean for us?
Well, definitely, the higher the prices of goods and services, the more they get out of reach of consumers. And this is particularly so because Nigerian inflation rate at 34.6% this last November is one of the highest in the world. In fact, it's the highest in sub-Saharan Africa. Already, the impact of the removal of fuel subsidy and the unification of the exchange rate had a knock-on effect on prices that drove them up. So with issues like the new salary increase, along with the fact that during festive period like this, it is very hard to contain the extent to which people decide to accept prices. So this season, we first witnessed a significant drop in the celebration among middle income to the lower income. For instance, a cow was about 150,000 about 3 years ago or 2 years ago. Now, a cow is about 500,000. As you have already mentioned, a chicken has gone up to around 10,000. And a bag of rice is about, 70 kg is almost 100,000. So definitely these items will be out of reach. What you are going to see is that a lot of the Nigerians who had always gone to their villages for Christmas and New Year will be unable to travel because inflation has affected the cost of transportation, the fuel costs, even if you have your car. So what that means is that Nigerians are going to witness a very gloomy Christmas and New Year period.
But what is responsible for this persistent rise in inflation, despite the tightening and measures by the Central Bank of Nigeria? It does look like we're going in the wrong direction when it comes to taming this inflation.
Well, thank you very much. The Nigerian inflation case is as a result of multiple factors. The food prices are leading the inflation growth. And of course, we are aware that we have the issue of geopolitical tensions or conflicts, the Russia and Ukraine and so on, which initially already push up prices. And then when we had the unification of exchange rate and the removal of fuel subsidy, fuel, the impact permeates almost every major price in the economy. And so these factors, together with the liquidity overhang from both the COVID-19 stimulus, together with the ways and means of over 27 trillion, as well as the deficit that is being sustained up to now. As we speak today, the government has already gone beyond the deficit. I don't want to mention the percentage. It has gone beyond the deficit, significantly beyond the deficit approved in the budget for this year. So all of this bring about liquidity, a lot of liquidity coming in the economy. As at today, the liquidity money supply is 107.5 trillion. So, billion. So trillion. So the impact is very significant.
It trickles down. Well, the Minister of Budget did mention today at that Federal Executive Council meeting that, this administration inherited some level of deficit and that they've managed to sustain that. He didn't reel out the figure. But let's go back to the issue you raised, because food inflation is particularly acute and driving these figures up. So it does point to the fact of food security or insecurity, as the case may be in our country. Where do you put factors such as the food chain supplies, the storage facilities, the transportation you have mentioned,
No.
and the agricultural policies that we hear about, you know, consistently from this administration. What factors are they playing? I mean, they don't seem to be moving the needle. Why is that so? And the role of supply chain and storage facilities.
As we all know, a number of factors beyond just the disruption. The disruption is caused by issues of insecurity, like you said, and then the geopolitical disruption. But we have a situation whereby the rise in the cost of transportation and logistics is a major factor that prevents movement of food from the villages to the urban centers. And so the supply side has gone down significantly. Then the unification of the exchange rate has brought about significant differentiation in the value of the naira. This year alone, the differentiation is about 41%. And because a lot of the food items are imported, a lot of our food items that we consume are imported. And
how do we change that narrative, basically, is my question, because we talk about agricultural revolution, policies in the agricultural sector. We have 2 ministers for that ministry, a senior minister and a junior minister, and we have this on our hands. What are we doing wrongly? Why are we so dependent on imported food?
Well, the challenge of importation of food in the Nigerian economy does not apply only to food. The productive capacity of the Nigerian economy cannot satisfy even 30%. I think barely 15% of what we consume. If we are not importing a lot of things, like in this environment, you see a lot of things are imported. So we import food because Nigerian farming depends primarily on subsistence agricultural practices. There would have been a massive irrigation strategy used. And issues of food storage that you talk about. I was listening to a program by the president of the national president of the Onion Producers Association in Sokoto State, and he said 60% of the onion produced is lost due to lack of adequate storage. So the issue of post-harvest losses is a major problem. At least 45% of food produced in Nigeria is, it suffers from losses. So policies that will address some of these challenges, for instance, there is the environmental issue of flooding.
Climate change.
Yeah, exactly. So these issues actually have not been adequately addressed. It will be very relevant if the government will enter into a partnership, just like in other aspects of the macroeconomy. Today, the states, about 32 states, have budgeted 22 trillion for 2025. That means a lot of that will go into recurrent expenditure and still bring negative impact on inflation. So the federal government, both in coordinating monetary and fiscal policy at the federal level, should enter partnership with the state government to drive some of the strategies that are meant to, one, beef up food production. So there should be a real emergency on food production. Of course, we know what is to be done.
Okay. All right, unfortunately, we are out of time. Dr. Justin Amase, thank you so much for your analysis and insights on the runaway inflation, as we call it in Nigeria. Dr. Justin Amase is an economist.